And good morning. So my name is Richard Collins. I'm the founder of CSRA, which is the UK's only accreditation body for social responsibility. And it encourages companies to build a robust strategy within their organisation. And we are getting a sense, especially with the sort of hindsight of COVID, that social responsibility is an important strategy and structure that all businesses need to consider seriously for their long-term sustainability. So much so that we feel that modern businesses, the businesses of the future, will be measured as much for their social value as for their financial value. So I'm going to put the slideshow on, and I'm going to introduce Owen Hughes, who's going to take control of most of the presentation. I'm going to chip in. So I'm going to introduce this, start the ball rolling. Owen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Owen Hughes. I've been working with Richard for 3 years now, I guess, on CSRA, having been in marketing all my life or career. Very quickly, when I was at sort of an early stage, realised that CSR, as it was then referred to all the time, was a great vehicle to promote a business. So I came at it from a completely commercial angle, but I then evolved and became quite passionate about giving back to the community, which is where I got involved with Richard, because actually the two sides meet. So there's absolutely every reason for businesses to get benefit out of the work they give back to communities. And through the last few years, we've started to raise the profile of CSR and the values of being recognised for it as organisations. And then obviously COVID hit, and actually what it's done is it's triggered a much greater awareness of the need for social and community support. And my belief and my hope, as I believe Richard's is that this is going to trigger a new generation of socially responsible organisations, be those the micro businesses, the one-man bands, up to the large corporates. And I think what we've seen is a huge number of corporates actually giving back and using this as a reason to start changing the way they operate. So without wanting to steal all of the talk, Richard, you all right to operate the slides then, Richard?
Yeah. You just
yeah. So what I'd like to do is just spend sort of 20 minutes or so just going through what we believe is going to happen, and how CSR, or social responsibility as it's now referred to, is going to play a big part of business going forward. So if we move on, Richard.
So if I introduce, there's a little bit that I wanted to kind of,
okay,
just sort of start the ball rolling, and obviously Owen follow in on this. But we talk about this new normal, and I think we can agree that in hindsight that normal was not working, and we need to create the better normal. But I think it's with the benefit of hindsight that we can clearly see that the normal we experienced before the pandemic was not working, and I'm not sure that it's about the new normal. I think what we did is we lost sight of normal. We entered a false normal, in which our pace of life had increasingly got faster with the transition to online environment as distanced us from a sense reality, and the advent of fake news and social media echo chambers, and the non-stop interference of work into our social time via our phones and tablets. So we've barely had time to stop and reflect on the world. And I think the pandemic has actually reintroduced us to a more authentic normal. That's one in which we have a stronger sense of community, as Owen was saying, and social responsibility. It actually feels like we lost sight of those values, and we're now beginning to see them again. So we do need to do something far better than the old normal going forward. And I'm in no doubt that moral and social responsibility will play an essential role in life, both at home and at work going forward. I think we can agree that since February, the world has changed dramatically and the focus on social responsibility has become far more important. We have witnessed amazing acts of kindness by individuals and companies and organisations to support struggling businesses, charities and individuals. I think this will become normal as consumers and stakeholders expect increased social value from the businesses they are engaged with. Over the past few years, employers have recognised their workforce's need for both care and purpose. And in the light of recent events, this is more important now than ever before. It's likely that when we return to the office, businesses will have both the opportunity and the desire to rethink their approach to well-being and culture. And as you've heard before, I think this is an opportunity for us to build back better. I personally believe that we will take forward a lot of the positives and not the negatives. I know that some things will revert back to the old normal, but I think on the balance, we will come out of this better. Owen, if you'd like to chip into that.
Yeah, so we talk about the new normal, and we were talking before the presentation actually. I don't personally believe it's a new normal. I think what that COVID is done is facilitated and triggered or given businesses a reason to actually make that change from being quite rigid, structured organisations to being genuinely flexible. And you know, we've already seen an awful lot of very large organisations talking about the need for less office space. And when you get companies like Barclays and HSBC talking about selling up in Canary Wharf and taking less than half the amount of office space in London, then you know, we all have to sit up and listen. So it will just trigger a change. Now, what businesses will look like in 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, 3 years, we don't know for certain. But what I think we can absolutely say is there is going to be more flexible working. There is going to be an increase of remote working. The fact that we're all sitting having a Zoom webinar now, before Christmas, a tiny number of webinars were run like this. Now it's the normal, and everybody's got used to it. There are going to be different challenges for every organisation. You know, retail has their own challenges, as does the hospitality and leisure. The services sector, consultants, finance, professional services, legal, accounting, is probably easier because they can do a lot of their work remotely. They can have meetings. But ultimately, it's going to be about what do the customers want? And I mentioned retail. So are customers genuinely going to want to go back to shopping the way they did before? There had already been a migration to internet shopping, and retail was struggling to maintain that footfall. And I think this will be the final trigger to make businesses, retailers realise they have to become experiences rather than just walk in and buy your products, because everyone's just going to go online. But I think the most important bit is the changing values. And for me, one of the biggest indicators of this has been the amount of work and effort communities have done to support other people over this 4 months. People doing shopping for those that were isolating. People, the food banks, you know, there are food bank drops all over the place now. People becoming more concerned with the impact on others. From an environmental perspective, it's been a massive shot of adrenaline for the world. You know, all of the carbon emission numbers plummeted, and whilst they are coming back now, there's a lot of pressure now for governments not to forget the green message when they're trying to get economies kick-started. Personally, I don't think the airline industry will ever look the same again. I don't think corporates are going to be paying for first-class tickets to nip across to New York for a 2-hour meeting again. That'll be gone. Zoom will pick up the slack. So businesses are going to change. And what we have to do is then look at how that change can be used by businesses for their benefit. Can you click on one, Richard?
Yeah, I just want to add to that as well, because we have seen these trends happening, and in terms of where social responsibility has an impact. So if you look at this transition, according to a poll last week, 49% of the UK workforce will continue to work from home, and that's likely to rise up into 50 or even 60% of the UK workforce. We have anecdotal evidence from some of the customers we've been talking with. A law firm, for example, polled their 100 staff, or just over 100 staff, as to who would like to come back once lockdown is over, and only 2% said they would. And this is after they've just modified their offices to include more space to accommodate their growing business before COVID happens. Now, where I'm talking briefly about social responsibility, though, is if you have that transition to home working, employers have a responsibility to make sure that home working complies with health and safety, where offices are dedicated, where you have the correct chairs, where you have advice around skills training, mental health and well-being, around waste management, and who's going to pay the electricity bills and the heating bills in the summer or in the winter, for example. So there's a lot of, you can't just expect people to work from a laptop on their bed. That you've got to build a facility in people's homes to allow them to work safely and work them and comply with the business's values. So I think, what Owen's setting up is the fact that the world is going to change, but with that change comes a degree of responsibility to ensure that the employers and employees and all stakeholders, are managed and looked after through that transition.
And Richard's absolutely right. There has to be an element of accountability and responsibility, but this change can benefit businesses. COVID's triggered this massive social awareness, and you've only got to look at the clapping for the NHS on Thursday nights to realise that actually I think what we're doing is not taking our community for granted anymore. And we've realised who the really important people are. I find myself saying thank you when I go up to the co-op or into Sainsbury's now, making sure I say thank you to all of the staff, because they've been putting themselves at risk for the last 4 months, whereas we've just been shutting ourselves away. We've become aware for the communities. Are our neighbours who are elderly looked after? Have they got the support they need? And making sure all of these other people are cared for. And what we're seeing is, and I talk to my 17-year-old son, who's a great litmus test for me about what the younger generation are saying to organisations. And he's saying they are now only buying from websites or organisations who have a proven track record of giving back. They are not buying from socially irresponsible organisations. And social media being what it is too powerful to ignore what these communities want. So the benefit, ultimately, if you're not responsible, you're going to lose business. But if you are socially responsible, you're going to increase your customer base. And we have to remember that social responsibility is not just about philanthropy or charities. Yes, it is about the philanthropy. It is about supporting charities, because they are struggling more than you could possibly imagine at the moment. Yes, it's about the community, but it's also about the environment. And as Richard sort of highlighted, absolutely, it's about your staff. And it's about making sure they are cared for, they are looked after, they are given the right tools to not just perform their day-to-day work, but actually to thrive and to enjoy their work. And to do that, you need to engage them. You need to give them the opportunity to do different things, to go and do some work with charities or to go back into the community. Richard, anything else?
Yeah, and I think that, you know, looking at that shift to the future, and I think this is the other thing, is that you know, this triggering of social awareness has sped up an awareness that started to happen certainly after the Blue Planet. And we talk a lot about millennial trends. Now, millennials are now kind of in their early 40s. We have to look at the Generation Z, and that's the generation that have a different set of values about the world they want to live in. And I think COVID has actually really fast forwarded those values. So some of the conversations we've had in the last few weeks with students, one in particular who's just taken a job at Rennie Grove Hospice, for example, said that in her student house, those who were applying for jobs online were looking for a business's social responsibility pages before making the application. So I think the thing is that we got to be aware that there's a generational change in attitude towards what they want from work in the future.
Okay, so what is social responsibility and how can it help? Social responsibility really is about demonstrating the ethos of your business. If you don't have a social responsibility strategy or plans, it speaks an awful lot about you. It says that you're a business that cares about yourself and that's it. You're only in it for making money. But if you've got, on the flip side, if you have that strategy, if you are seen to be proactive in the community, supporting your staff, it says that you're a good business, that you are a business that cares. It says what type of business you are. It says that you care about people, both your staff and those around you. And in doing that, it proves that, or it is attractive to other people to become engaged with you. And I've been doing a lot of work with a firm up in London, and over the last 18 months, we have put a social responsibility strategy in place. We now are actively supporting a number of local charities for them, and the level of engagement they have within their local community has gone up by something like 40% in that 18 months. The awareness of the business has gone up, and people are associating them with an organisation that is helping, and consequently, they're winning new business on the back of it. So it's about winning and engaging with new customers, but it's also about engaging with your staff and being not just with your existing staff, but with new employees. And you then become, and Richard mentioned about students looking for social responsibility pages on websites. People who are moving jobs want to work for a business that's nice to work for. And you know, you see the Times top 100 businesses, you know, nice businesses to work for. And in the past, it used to be the creative agencies used to come out on top because they had pool tables and, you know, breakout rooms and Coke machines and, you know, everything. And yes, that still plays a part, but now it's more about, are you thinking about me as a member of staff? It's also about being more attractive to the media. And if you're doing community projects, if you're encouraging your staff to go out and do the community work, the media are far more likely to want to publish your stories and to talk about you. They don't want to talk about a firm of lawyers who are saying, we do commercial law and this is how good we are. But if that firm of lawyers turns around and says, actually, we've just completely changed the way we engage with our staff, and we're now giving every member of staff a day a month to go and work in the community. We're doing pro bono work for all of these charities, etc., etc. The media like that. It's something that's different. So all over, it makes you a more attractive package.
There's a Gallup poll that came out last week or a couple of weeks ago, and this is supporting what Owen's talking about engagement. The poll, it's quite shocking. This is a Gallup poll about the UK workforce, and it suggested that only 11% of the UK workforce are engaged at their jobs, 68% are not engaged, and 21% are actively disengaged. The three motivators, the three areas that have been identified as engaging staff and motivating them in this order was purpose, education, and autonomy. So by giving, the future of business will include emotional investment in enriching the quality of your staff by allowing them to deliver on social responsibility, to give them purpose and value. The two biggest reasons for a member of staff to leave the job through disengagement was poor leadership and poor corporate culture. And again, these are areas in which social responsibility can have a massive impact.
Okay, so how do you go about building a social responsibility strategy? Well, fundamentally, it's part of your business planning. And if you're, I do an awful lot of work with organisations on their business planning, and typically we look at a 5-year plan. And within that, the starting point is, where do we want to be in 5 years? And sometimes we look further forward. So we might look at a 10-year vision. Excuse me. And so you paint this picture of what the business wants to be doing and what they want it to look like. And typically that will start with a turnover figure, going down into a profitability figure. But then you have to start looking at how you're going to achieve those. And the same applies for every organisation, however large or small. I now have, and I don't, I'm quite happy to say, I have a lifestyle business. I would love to only be working 3 days a week, but unfortunately, I seem to be working more than I've ever worked at the moment. And I took that decision to wind our business back. So I now know where I want to be in 5 years and what I've got to do to achieve that goal. For larger organisations, they will do exactly the same. So once you've identified where you want to be, you have to look at how you're going to achieve that. And historically, that would include finance, it would include technology. You'd look at what your staffing and resource structure would be. Some companies would then look at their marketing and say, okay, they've realised that they have to do some marketing to get there, and sales. But more and more now, social responsibility is part of that. It's come under marketing in the past, it's come under HR in the past. I believe that going forward, it will end up being a category in its own right, because actually what it does is underpin how the business is going to move forward. Just excuse me, I've closed my window, I've got a helicopter flying past. So is Beth. It's going up to the base, Beth. Social responsibility then has to be part of your planning at the outset. And within that, you have to look at what your staff structure is and how you're going to include them. You need to look at your environmental aspects. So everything from your paper usage to your travel policies, to how you're lighting and you're operating your offices, to how your staff are working with food, and et cetera, et cetera. You have to look at how you're engaging your staff. You have to look at how you're engaging with the community on a regular basis. You also need to look at, are you supporting charities? And then how you're using these activities to promote your business. And that's where it will then link in with your marketing. Because it's, there is more and more evidence to support the fact that people will engage with social stories far more than they will with technical stories. So if you're trying to sell a product or service, people might read it, but if you're telling them about this big project that your staff have just done at a local school, they're going to read about that. So it's going to help raise your brand profile. Richard?
Yeah, and that strategy, so what Owen's neatly done there is he's kind of mapped out that at CSRA, we are defining a new standard of social responsibility, one that we measure like for like. And that's based on the 4 pillars of environment, workplace, community, and philanthropy. This allows organisations to take those 4 areas and audit their business so they can see what they're already doing. And then they can look at where the gaps are and what they could be doing better. We have loads of tools for this, and we have a lovely tool that helps you measure impact against those areas. So, you know, you can look at the impact of recycling, or you can look at the impact of mental health and wellbeing programs, or you can look at the impact of supporting a community or a charity. And part of that strategy is to deliver this, you know, across a long period of time. You will find that the reward you get is not only doing the right thing, but it generates the most incredible storytelling. And you know, if you start that process, you start to audit, you have something to measure and report on.
Arguably, no organisation is going to do something unless it's going to benefit them. For whatever reason, but social responsibility will pretty much benefit everybody, and this is just a sort of high level of where the benefits are. So from a business, you're going to get a marketing return, you're going to raise your awareness, the chances are you're going to generate incremental revenue by that higher profile. But it's also going to provide a financial benefit. And if Richard mentioned about our 4 pillars, but if you're looking at the environmental changes, that can save you considerable money. If you're looking about your staff engagement, that can generate a much greater level of productivity. So there is a genuine financial reason for any business to have a social responsibility strategy. Your staff, the contentment it's a tangible increase. When we go into organisations and we help them set up social responsibility strategies, and you go back 6 months later and you see the whole sense of well-being and enjoyment of the job, it's gone up. People want to be there then because their business is giving them the chance to do something good. The productivity will go up. Your staff retention will improve. But not only your staff retention, your ability to recruit people will improve. You know, Richard was talking about students. We did some work with Bucks New Uni a couple of years ago. And they even then they were saying that something like 80% of students weren't interested in working for an organisation that didn't have a social responsibility strategy and set up. The community and charities will benefit. Charities in particular and community projects are desperate for businesses to support them. There is going to be, and has been for many years, a funding gap between what the government can afford to do on what's needed. And that's where businesses can help out. They can, and it doesn't have to be with cash, it can be with time. And that's what businesses need to think about. However...
Yes, I was going to jump in that because you were leading nicely onto that, Owen. And I think we talk about ROI and SRI, just to finish off from the last slide and introduce this slide, we also are interested in that return on social investment. That return on social investment is a financial return. So that's through reduced absenteeism, through improved recruitment, through reduced leavism and presenteeism, and through reduced energy costs, and so on and so forth. So there is a very bottom line return on social investment. But of course, we do need to look at that return on investment and that social return on investment as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've been long, for many years, I'm looking at marketing, been saying that if a marketing strategy does not deliver a return on investment, that your marketing team are doing the wrong job. And FDs, CEOs want to be able to calculate that. They want to see a figure. And social responsibility is no different. And you should be able to see a benefit from it, and you can calculate it. So we've developed a formula that you can see below. So you need to be able to measure all of the tangible results that your social responsibility is giving, and we'll come on to that in a second. But by doing that, you can see the value added to your business. You can then take the cost to implement that, and you can then, if you use that formula, it will give you a return on your investment. Now, that can be done in a very straightforward way, or it can be done in a very detailed way. You can look at your productivity. I've had organisations who have put time and motion studies in place so that they can see the incremental productivity that they've got out of their staff. They've measured the marketing benefits through increased awareness of their social responsibility, and have had an incredible return on that investment. Richard, can you go on to the next slide as well? Just because it goes so. But in calculating that, to ensure that you get an accurate figure, you have to look at all of the costs. So be that your charitable donations, be it costs of, we were talking about working from home, if you have to pay for the setup of home costs, be it chairs, be it broadband, be it new computers, that all has to be included. And in order to be able to calculate that, you have to get people involved. You've got to have directors, the owners of the business, leading from the front. They have to be the primary stakeholders. To make it work properly, you have to get your staff engaged. But that will in turn deliver a much greater level of engagement and productivity. Really, you should be looking at your whole supply chain. And I'm looking at Beth here, so Beth, please forgive me for picking on you. But Beth works with interior design on something. So if you're recommending products to people to use, then look at where those products are sourced. There was a great incident earlier on this week. One of the big brands, fashion brands, is it Boohoo? I'm not fashionable, so I don't know what it is. But Next, ASOS delisted them because of a lot of their products are being produced in India by children, and they haven't got any checks and places. So they need to, and they've come out and said they're now going to audit their supply chain. So as a business, you need to make sure that's been audited. Your customers need to be involved. Tell them about it, and you'll get incremental sales. Work with the community, because if you're doing community projects, they will naturally become your salesmen. And you don't have to ask them to, but they will go out and they will be talking in the pubs and when they're out in their groups saying, do you know what? XYZ Limited have been amazing. Their team has come down, they've done all of this work for it, and your profile automatically gets raised. And the same thing with charities. Richard and I have been doing a lot of work with charities to help them use CSR and social responsibility to help improve their corporate engagement. Okay.
So I think, I just want to kick in a little bit on that as well. In terms of what Owen's been saying, and I'll give Owen a chance to also summarise. But I think the thing is that CSR programs, have the potential to help your organisation and society progress, but only if done well. And it is about aligning that corporate citizenship effort with revenue generating activities. You can ensure your CSR program is not only strategic, but is also sustainable. It is in our experience that many organisations are already doing lots of great things. They just don't realise that they're doing them. So, these things will contribute to their success, both financially, reputationally, and to their business. And getting these small things right can really instill pride and a strong sense of culture within the organisation. We have highlighted the benefits, of your organisation or a more socially responsible organisational approach. And this can be done through your own reviews on a structured CSR program, and can actually lead towards becoming an accredited business. So we can independently look at what you're doing and then accredit that and then start you on a journey. Everything we have discussed does actually count towards an organisation's CSR commitment. Each CSR pillar is designed to help you audit, benchmark, improve and impact report on areas such as energy, travel, health and wellbeing, community engagement, and supporting charities. And then this helps you form a policy. And once you've got that policy in place, you've got the ability to keep adding to it and improving it and delivering it, reporting on it, communicating it, and that will help you grow and thrive as a business. Owen, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the summary is it's a bit of a no-brainer, to be totally honest. Social responsibility is, it's good for your business in terms of marketing, it's good in terms of your sales, it's great in terms of your staff. Why wouldn't you do it? And in a society where we are becoming far more aware because of COVID about what organisations are doing, then it's now become essential that businesses engage with social responsibility. So to sort of bring the webinar full circle, what will businesses look like in 2 years' time? My belief is there will be some businesses that are similar to now. There will be other businesses that are completely different. But I think every single business will change in some shape or form. And I think what those businesses that thrive going forward will be the ones that are seen to be nice companies. And that's in terms of how they support their staff, but also in terms of how they support the outside world. So that's a quick snapshot of what we believe life will be like. And it won't be as you know it, Jim, in 2 years' time. Any questions?
Shall I start?
Yeah.
Okay. I love this whole idea, and I'm the one that actually didn't have a job, and I went out and did community service in the schools and the hearing dogs and the scouting and just everything else, because the children were young, you can't get a job, no one wants to have part-time people, and then realised that actually everything you're saying, I've actually already done it in a back to front kind of way, but I don't feel I can use my personal community charitable side of me to gain anything more. But actually that is exactly what I've been doing in a non-direct kind of way. I've had the clients from scouting, I've had the clients from hearing dogs, I've had the clients from school, but I always feel that that's just, I'm doing them a favour. I'm not doing that as a job. It is a bit bizarre how to try and make a business as positive as you're saying, when I just feel I shouldn't be using those people in my charitable capacity. It's a bizarre way round, and I didn't know how to actually make that go the other way, rather than keep, have it as part of my business. How do I show that?
Well, I mean, the first thing to do is to start. The thing is, it's good storytelling. It's win-win. So it's positive narrative. And I think the thing is you're not doing it to show off or brag or to try and you will show integrity, and you will show that you're genuine in what you're doing. The thing is to have a space or an area on your website that talks about your values and talks about your social values and talks about what you're doing, and to use that when you're through your social media channels, to have those conversations. It's a nice way to engage with people because the story is about something good.
I absolutely, and I think that the thing is, Beth, whether you're a one-man, one-woman band or a bigger business, you're doing that. You're giving up your time to help those charities, those community projects, and that's time that you could be dedicating to work. But actually, what you're doing is you're dedicating that to give something back to the community. So absolutely tell people about it. Tell them on LinkedIn. Tell them, put them up on your website, because with the work you're doing, especially, it's very personal, and people are only going to want to have somebody advising them on their home if there's a personal connection, and they're far more likely to connect to somebody that they look at and go, do you know what, this Beth, she's a nice person. She's done all of this work for the local charities and communities. Absolutely, that's the sort of person I want to come in and help me out, rather than somebody that's sitting on there going, well, I'm brilliant because I do all of I've done these projects and I've helped this person and this is my cost. Well, okay, yeah, you're commercial. I'd like somebody that I can have a conversation with, and it's no different for larger businesses. Case studies are. I'm doing some work with a company at the moment. Excuse me. They before the lockdown had this program called Super Wellness, and it was all about staff health and well-being. And something like 70% of their workforce have signed up for this. And we've been going out giving regular updates on these programs. They've split them into teams and they've all had challenges, and it's about your diet, it's about your activity, and it's about your ability to do your work. And again, the engagement they're getting has been far more than anything that we're putting out saying, look, we've got these products that we've just launched. People want to read about it. So absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, I feel, yes, it is being present, but without saying who you are and what you do. You stand in a playground, you're just another mum, until actually someone realises that you can help them. Oh, speak to Beth, they can help you. Because I only do favours. It's a bizarre kind of concept that I always feel like I'm doing a favour for someone rather than a job for someone. Yeah. And how to actually do all of that. I worked for a bed company very close to High Wycombe that hated me leaving 15 minutes early to do girl guiding. And you realise that was just not, I was getting more stressed to do a charitable job than to actually stay at work. So again, it wasn't for me. That company wasn't for me. So
and companies like that will not retain staff, because people, especially as you go through your career in your life and you have families and kids and stuff, you want to be part of their world, and thankfully there are people like you that want to go and support things like the Girl Guides and the Scouts and stuff. So actually we should be encouraging that, and companies that won't survive. But the other thing I was going to say is, you're absolutely right. You can be standing in the school playground talking about it, and all of a sudden somebody says, "Oh, can you come and have a chat?" Word of mouth is the most powerful marketing out, and actually LinkedIn, social, Facebook, Twitter, all of that is basically just modern day word of mouth. And it's, if you get if I get a message from Richard, for example, saying, I've just been down to, just tried this new restaurant when we could go to new restaurants, absolutely amazing. The chances are I'm going to go and try it. Likewise, if he said to me, I've just engaged in a new IT company and they have sorted out all of our problems, the cost was peanuts, what a great service. The chances are, if I have a need to change, I'm going to go to it. So word of mouth, fantastic.
But it's a reputational thing. So Beth, you know, my background's branding, and you may have heard, and certainly Maxim's heard me say this a million times, but I often talk about branding in the sense that your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Social responsibility is a brilliant way of brand reputation, building brand visibility. And it shows leadership and integrity. So it shows that you're the right, so the company that you left, you know, that attitude, companies who aren't able to accommodate the needs of their staff in a way that is a lot more emotional, as I say, that emotional investment, I think they will struggle. I think we're going to have a future in which there's going to be a huge skills gap, and there's going to be a difficulty for employers to recruit the right kind of talent into their business unless they change the way they behave as a business.
Yeah, I do feel this gap has got bigger from the millennials that actually want to be socially. We've always said to them, you've got to keep the streets clean, we need to have better air, and all of a sudden it's fighting us back because we're not practicing what we're preaching. Hence they are all joining the charitable organisations, and then we're realising that we've actually stopped listening to them. So yes, I see that as an actual job that they are actually getting. So yeah, I do feel that we have got this cultural gap regardless. So, and actually COVID's done us well in a sick kind of way. And I do like Build Back Better, because that is hopefully what we're all going to do.
Agreed.